Hello and welcome to another video. I got a bunch of comments in my Discord and elsewhere about, Anthony, you made a Python 3.14 video where you talked about all the interesting stuff. Why didn't you talk about this tail call interpreter in your video? And the long and the short of it is, yes, it is a tail calling interpreter, but it does not enable tail call optimization in Python. Now, you might not know what any of that means, so that's why this video is here, where I'm going to quickly explain what tail call optimization is, then I'm going to talk about what the tail call interpreter is, and why it's mostly not a big deal for most people. But anyway, let's start by describing what tail call optimization is. So, I gotta reach back to my early C and C++ classes here. So I'm actually going to show a very simple example. Unfortunately, modern compilers actually tail call optimize this example anyway, so it's not a great example, and I'll show you one where they actually don't optimize it, and we can walk through some of the output assembly to understand it. But let's talk about this first. So we're going to write a little bit of C in a markdown file because why not? And we're going to implement a factorial function. And yes, this is the canonical example that every textbook goes over in describing tail call optimization. So yeah, it is what it is. And basically, we're going to write a very simple version of this where we just return 1 if it's that. Otherwise, we return n times fac of n minus 1. This is a factorial function. This function itself is not tail call recursive. We'll talk about what sort of defines a tail call recursive function in a second. But I wanted to walk you through how this evaluates and why it's not tail call recursive, and how you can kind of recognize that by looking at the recursion of the call graph here. Lots of big words. All right, so let's say that we call fac of 4. Let's do fac of 3 so I don't have to write so much out. So this recursive call is going to go through here, and it's going to evaluate as n times fac of 2. And that is going to do another recursive call, or not n, 3, which is then going to be 3 times 2 times fac of 1, which eventually is going to be 3 times 2 times 1, and then that's going to give us 6. So you'll recurse through and eventually get your result of 6. Now, the way that you can kind of tell that this isn't tail recursive, just based on looking at this call graph here, is you'll notice that it's sort of triangular shaped. And when you think about something that's tail recursive, it'll actually look like a line. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. You can also sort of notice it by how the last return statement of a function looks. If there's some other computation here, it's likely not tail recursive, but if it is just return and then a recursive function call, it is likely tail recursive. Not in all cases, but that's sort of a general way to think about it. So let's take this factorial function and rewrite it as a tail recursive version of this. So to another markdown file, and I'm actually going to define 2 functions here. So int fac tch, this is going to be our little helper. Pull that out in a second. And fac tc, this is going to be our tail recursive version of our factorial function. And we're just going to call return fac tch 1 and n, and we'll give those variables names now. We'll have an accumulator and our n. This is actually going to look very similar to the other function, but we're going to have one subtle difference here. So if n equals 1, we're going to return our accumulator. Otherwise, we're going to return a recursive call to our solve. Fac tch accumulator times n, and then n minus 1. So this is a different version of our recursive factorial from before, but this one is tail call recursive. Let's look at the call graph here and kind of explain what's going on here. So again, we're going to call fac tc of 3. And this is going to result in a call to fac tch of 1 and 3, which is going to result in, well, n minus 1 to fac tch accumulator times n, so 3 and 2. And this is going to call another recursive call here of 3 times 2, so 6, and 1, which is going to result in 6 here. And you'll notice here that we sort of have that linear recursive call graph here. That linear call graph here. Now, why does this matter? What is tail call optimization? When a compiler sees something like this, it can take all of these recursive calls, which generally are expensive because they need to allocate a new stack frame, you need to push variables, you need to call a function, you need to return, you got to do all that other junk. A compiler can see this and it will turn it into a loop. So instead of actually doing the recursive calls here, it'll execute it as a loop. And I've actually made an example using, if you haven't used, I think it's pronounced Godbolt, I don't know, godbolt.org. It is a compiler explorer where you can just type some code in a bunch of different programming languages. Oh, I didn't even know it had all these other ones. Holy. I feel like it only had like C and C++ when I used it the first time. So now it has all sorts of other stuff. But anyway, I've decided to implement a Fibonacci function, which I couldn't get the compiler to automatically convert to tail call for me. Actually, you'll find that if you copy both this tail call recursive version and this version here and put it into Godbolt for any modern compiler, it's going to tail call optimize both of those, which is annoying and makes this harder to teach. So that's why, unfortunately, I had to make a more complicated version here. So I'm actually making a Fibonacci caller here. And this recursive version of Fibonacci here, you know, obviously is, you can kind of see, well, it's sort of hard to see, but you can see here that it's recursively calling itself. You can actually highlight it here. See the little red there. Recursively calling itself here, and so we are not actually achieving tail call recursion in this version here. But if we scroll down to fibtch here, you'll see that there's no recursive calls here. It's able to recognize that this is a essentially a tail call to itself and turn this into a loop. Of course, this is a lot harder to read and understand what's going on, but it's basically keeping track of 3 variables and updating them. And so it can understand, oh, hey, this is just a loop, a series of adds, and we'll be able to resolve the same thing here. So yeah, but I'm not going to pretend to understand all of the x86 assembly. Oh, I wonder if we can put this in like MIPS instead. Will it be easier to understand in MIPS? Try MIPS Clang. Yeah, it is actually a little bit easier to understand in MIPS. Yeah, you can see here MIPS has shorter assembly. There's no recursive calls here. Over up here, you can see we do have recursive calls. So, although interestingly enough, I think it partially tail call optimized this function here, because you can see that there's only 1 recursive call to fib and not 2. Huh, interesting. So there is, I guess it tried. It tried really hard to, actually, you know what it probably did? It made this bit here tail recursive, and then it called this as a helper function. Clever. Anyway, so this is my silly example here. So that's what tail call optimization is. Python does not have this. And I think Guido has actually said in some like very public thing that Python will never have this because stack traces are important or something. I actually think it's possible to implement in Python, but no one has attempted. And the thing about stack traces is that like if you had an exception in a tail recursive function, it would be difficult for the programmer to understand what was actually happening because the code wouldn't look anything like what was actually being executed if Python somehow optimized things to be a loop instead of a recursive call. But I think probably with some clever thinking and clever thought processor, it could synthesize fake stack frames and fake stack traces that look like, you know, if the real tail call didn't happen. Okay, anyway, so that's sort of a whirlwind tour of what tail call recursion is, why this is not tail call recursive, even though modern compilers can figure it out, and we'll actually turn this into a tail call optimized function. Or I don't know, I guess technically it's not a tail call optimized function, but the compiler can, well, compilers are magic. Anyway, and so this is what tail call recursion is. So if that's what tail call recursion is, and this new tail call interpreter doesn't do tail call optimization, why is this relevant? Why does anyone care? And give me my tail call optimization. Anyway, so what is this tail call interpreter? So we're getting all that we just talked about. We have to talk a little bit about how Python executes. And I've done this in a previous video. I believe if you search on YouTube, like Anthony writes code, Python is compiled. I think that's the title of the video. Yeah. I go over the basics of this here, but I'm gonna just give you a really small example where we make a function called add, which has x and y, and return x plus y. And 3 dis t.py. Yeah, so this is the function. This is the add function down here, where we do 2 load fasts, we do a return, or we do a binary op, and then we do a return. So you can see here that there's bytecode, and Python operates as a stack machine, and so it sort of needs to interpret what these bytecodes are and then do stuff to them. The way this is implemented in Python is there's basically, or at least naively, it's not actually this way, and it used to be this way, but we'll get to why we would even have one of these tail call interpreters in a second. But the way this was implemented in C is a giant switch statement where you basically load an opcode, you check case, one opcode. If it's that, it does that opcode. So you have a whole bunch of case statements for each of these various different opcodes, and they perform their side effects in there. And I want to say it still sort of lives in the code base. Let's see, Python. What is the file called? I think it's like ceval.c. There's a giant switch in here somewhere. Oh, that's the micro ops. Maybe it is here. Nope. Okay, anyway, there's a giant switch somewhere in actually, I feel like I can find it. Get grab switch Python ceval. Yeah. Anyway, trust. There used to be a giant switch statement. It probably is still there, but it might be hidden behind macros now. But unfortunately, a giant switch statement is kind of slow. Like naively, if you have like switch opcode, case op1, do something, case op2. Obviously, this isn't the syntax of C, but trust. Naively, what it's going to have to do is if it equals this, do that. If it equals that, do that. If it equals this, do that. And so it's going to be, pretty slow to execute. It's going to need to try each of these various cases. Compilers are a little smarter, so they can do some clever things, but naively, that's what happens. Python in GCC actually uses a special thing called computed gotos, where basically it can figure out where the code for a particular opcode is and jump directly to that. So that's kind of the current level of optimizations that's used in CPython. But what is this tail call thing? Basically what it does is instead of having this case, instead of having those gotos, it turns this into a whole bunch of functions. And I believe you can actually see them in the generated code of this here. It turns them into a bunch of functions that themselves are forced to be tail called. And so the compiler will optimize them to not actually generate stack frames. Where is the generated file? This file. Target opcodes. Yeah, so you can see it basically creates a new function, a tail call function for each opcode. You can see add float, add int, add Unicode, essentially all of the opcodes that are in Python. It then makes a table of all of them. So down here, there's a table, it's an array, mapping the integer value for a particular opcode to the function that implements it. And what this function does is it uses a label called, or a compiler annotation called musttail, which is, I guess, a Clang extension currently. I don't think GCC has it. Works for GCC 15, but not this at the moment. So I guess GCC doesn't completely implement this. But basically what musttail does is it forces the compiler to essentially inline the code of that function and not allocate stack frames, and so it sort of acts as a goto. So this is a specialized goto in a trend code. But what this means is that the bytecode interpreter of Python can execute a lot faster because it doesn't have to maintain all the other state of that giant switch statement, or all of the like lookup and go to stuff that happens for computed go tos. It just sort of happens in compiler land and can be a little bit faster. Obviously, I don't completely understand the workings of mustail, so I'm oversimplifying here, but that's how you can think about it. And it produces some pretty, surprising performance benefits. Although, if I remember correctly, these are inflated due to a bug in Clang, and this is actually only like 4 to 5% faster. And unfortunately, the reason that I'm not like, I didn't call this out at all in the 3.14 changelog is this is only with a very specific compiler at the very latest version compiling CPython. And if you're using GCC or MSVC or any other C compiler, you're not going to see these benefits because they have not implemented this mustail implementation. And so this is only for Clang and not that much faster. Now, if this were the default case of Python, and if it were, every platform could take advantage of this, I would have called it out in the changelog because, yeah, it speeds up Python, which is really cool. But anyway, so to answer this, it's not that interesting. It's a new magical C thing to speed up the C eval loop, but it doesn't really, it doesn't give you tail call optimization in Python code, which is what it sounds like it might do on the tin, and why I left it out of my changelog video, because I didn't think it was that interesting. But anyway, here's all the nitty-gritty details. Hopefully you learned something about tail call itself, and you probably already knew tail. No, you're really smart, random viewer. But yeah, new tail call interpreter, not tail call optimization. Hopefully you found this useful. If there are additional things you'd like me to explain, leave a comment below or reach out to me on the various platforms. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.